There seems to be a resurgence of tuna fish advertising as influencers on social media show the benefits of eating tuna and try to bust myths of mercury poisoning and overfishing. And if you look up government standards, you'll find that specific tuna is safe to eat. But are the supermarkets that sell them sourcing them from the right supplier? Are they making sure that the suppliers are sustainably catching tuna and treating their staff properly? Over a number of podcasts, I have revealed the tragedies of overfishing on the high seas, including transshipping at sea and the use of fisheries slaves. I think that you have the right to know if your favorite grocery store is sourcing their tuna from the right companies. So Greenpeace recently released a report ranking worldwide grocery stores that sell tuna based on sustainability and human rights. I'm going to go over them on this episode of How to Protect the Ocean. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of How to Protect the Ocean. I am your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is where you find out what's going on in the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. Today we're going to be talking about tuna fish. Tuna fish is great. You get them in cans. They're salty. They've got a lot of protein. I know for me, as someone who is trying to look after their health, I look after, my macros, my carbs, my fats, but also my protein. And tuna hits two of those, right? It hits the fats and the proteins. It's good for you. But there was always that sort of like worry. Is it high in mercury? Am I getting it from the right place? Where's the fish coming from? How is it caught? It's very difficult to try and figure out all what's going on and where to buy. You can buy it from a seafood store. You can buy it from a restaurant. You can buy it from a grocery store. All of those are great to buy food from, for the fish from. But do they know where they source it from? And if they do, are they telling you where it's coming from? There's a lot of problems with buying fish anywhere, right? Buying any type of seafood, there's some problems. There have been, Oceana has released reports of fraud of specific like tuna steaks or different types of tuna, different types of fish in general. It's not snapper, it's tilapia. So fraud is, in some places is up to 48%. And then you have other aspects of seafood. It's like, if I go to a grocery store and I ask for a specific fish and I say, hey, where was that caught and how was it caught? A lot of the times the person behind the counter doesn't even know because either they haven't been told or they just don't care because they get paid minimum wage, right? If I see a 16-year-old back there who doesn't know, where this fish came from or how it was caught, I'm not really going to trust where they caught it from. If they don't tell the person that's there, not that it's their fault, but if they don't tell the person behind the counter to tell me or to tell the consumer, how do I know I'm making the responsible decision? That is one of the big problems with buying seafood in today's day. Now, you do see some labeling from different grocers and some stores that have boycotted certain things like lobster because of, worrying about the endangered species of northern right whales. But all the time, you don't know if they're making the right decision. So Greenpeace has scored the 16 largest grocery retailers on human rights and environmental sustainability in their tuna sourcing. So just specific to their tuna. And just giving one, Aldi, a passing overall grade. Interesting. The report gave just two of the retailers, Aldi and Whole Foods Market, passing grades for addressing sustainability issues. None of the retailers received a passing grade for efforts to rid their supply chains of forced labor and other human rights abuses. The U.S. is the world's second largest tuna importer, and its retailers wield significant clout within the tuna sector, according to this report. So I'm going to link to this report in the show notes, or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to link in the description down below. I highly recommend that you check this out. Now, there has been, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but if you watch TikTok or if you watch Instagram or if you watch YouTube, you see a lot of chefs, you see a lot of influencers that are pro-seafood, pro-sustainable seafood, sharing sustainable seafood sources, showing them how it's really nice to eat. You can, the health benefits, the nutrient benefits, and we've seen sort of a massive boost in this. But the problem is we still have a problem. We still have a problem of where these fish came from. Are the grocers really doing something that's sustainable and that is making sure that it's not using forced labor. And that's a difficult thing to trace. But Greenpeace has done that. They've taken their time and they've ranked, like I said, 16 U.S. grocers, 16 of the largest U.S. grocers. And unfortunately, they didn't rank very well. And because the U.S. is the world's second largest tuna importer, and its retailers have significant clouds, it's within the 42 billion global tuna sector, right? That's a lot. According to the report, Greenpeace has been ranking U.S. seafood retailers on sustainability criteria since 2008, and this is the second such report to incorporate human rights considerations. So they've only started to incorporate human rights recently. So the report's authors compiled a scorecard for the 16 largest grocers on their tuna sourcing practices. To do so, they sent out a survey, which 11 of the retailers completed and returned, and used publicly available information for the remaining 5. So they did get a score for all 16. They scored the retailers with percentage grades based on 39 questions across 6 categories: procurement policy, traceability, advocacy, initiatives, human rights, and labor protections, current sourcing, and customer education and labeling. And so what they notice is that the people or the grocers that actually passed on a 60% mark did so just by a narrow margin. And it says here on the human rights, none of the retailers received a passing grade. Nobody. This is a testament to the glacial pace of progress in the tuna retail industry when it comes to taking decisive action to address human rights and labor issues in the supply chain. This was a quote from Malika Talwar, who is a senior oceans campaigner at Greenpeace and a co-author of the report. So the German grocer giant Aldi came the closest to passing for human rights at 56%, and the report praises comprehensive publicly available seafood and human rights policies. So it doesn't mean to say that some of these grocers didn't have human rights policies. It just didn't measure up to what was actually be like a productive one, like one that would actually do something. And they also said that the explicit advocacy for a living wage for workers in its supply chain. Its score was reduced by the limited scope of its grievance mechanisms and the fact that its corporate responsibility supplier evaluation program is still in development. So Aldi seems to have some progress ahead, and it looks like it's already in that process, which is great. The second worst on human rights was Southeastern Grocers, the parent company of Fresco Yamaz, Harvey's Supermarket, and Winn-Dixie. Its corporate social responsibility report did not include even one mention of human rights. And the company continues to have no discernible policy on at-sea transshipment, which is essentially when a ship catches a bunch. So there's a ship that's basically a container ship. It keeps all of the tuna and all of the fish. Other fishing boats go out, catch the tuna, come back in, and a lot of the times they'll cut off the heads, they'll cut off the tails. You don't even know if it's tuna sometimes. It could be shark, it could be sometimes dolphin, swordfish, whatever that might be. It's really hard to tell because it's already cut up when it comes in. So transshipment at sea is not a good thing. It also includes human rights, due diligence, migrant workers, or grievance mechanisms. So it didn't include any of that. And so with transshipment, it's also tied to a lot of illegal, unreported, unregulated IUU fishing. And because it enables fishing vessels to remain at sea for long periods, it also contributes to the risk of human and labor rights abuses in supply chains. In other words, fishery slaves. That's what it really contains. So what happens is these boats don't come home. They don't come back to shore. They just go to the sort of the container ship where they drop off the fish, refuel sometimes, will go back out for another couple of weeks or a few weeks, come back, go out, come back. If workers get sick, they don't care. A lot of times they'll throw them overboard, and they just get rid of them, and then they go back and they get more fishery slaves. It's a horrible practice that is still used today. And there are groups out there who are trying to rescue those fishery slaves, but it's very difficult to do so. The deception and just the amount that is out there, it just runs deep within the high seas industry, which is basically international waters. So on sustainability, Amazon-owned Whole Foods Market, the largest U.S. chain specializing in natural and organic foods, scored the highest at 75%. Aldi came in second at 70%, which brought its combined score to a passing 62%, the first and only overall passing grade since the addition of human rights factors in the rankings last year. The authors praise Whole Foods for strong traceability and sourcing requirements, including its commitment to selling only pole and line caught canned tuna. These methods ensure that bycatch and ensure less bycatch and overfishing than other methods. By the way, all this information is in the Manga Bay News article that I'm looking at right now, and so I am going to share that in the description below or on the show notes, however you're listening to this episode. Now, on the other end of the scale, Michigan-based chain Mayer, I think it's called, scored last on sustainability grade of 20%, earning its lowest overall grade of 16%. The reasons for this include its continued sourcing of at-risk species like bluefin tuna and of fish caught using damaging catch methods such as long lines and purse seine nets assisted by fish aggregating devices, and in already overfished areas, among other factors. Costco, the one that says it has the labeling of MSC, which I think is Marine Stewardship Council. Costco came second to last with a sustainability score of 32%. Now, this is just for tuna. It doesn't mean other fish that's sold at Costco. Critics centered in on its vague sourcing and seafood sustainability policies and the lack of a policy on transshipment. So the Manga Bay reached out to 8 of the 16 grocers to report the rank comment. Aldi, Ahold Delhaize, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly, Whole Foods, Mayer, Wegmans, Albertsons, Costco, and Kroger. None of them responded. Now, a lot of the issues that are related to tuna fishing have to do with remote workplaces. So in other words, when you're on the high seas, it's really difficult to enforce any type of safe fishing practices and human rights. And so when NGOs research suggests that this often results in tuna products of dubious environmental and social pedigree being made available on supermarket shelves in the U.S., despite grocery chains' reassurances on the contrary. In 2020, Greenpeace linked tuna caught by vessels that supply the ubiquitous canned tuna brand Bumblebee to forced labor, human trafficking, and IUU fishing practices, and then traced the tuna to a Kroger-owned Harris Teeter in Arlington, Virginia, according to the press release. So here we are with a lot of information that doesn't bode well for the sourcing and on sustainability and human rights of tuna fish. Now, here's the problem, is that some of them do well, some of them don't. It's very difficult to tell. Oftentimes, when you go out to go grocery shopping, your wife, your partner, whoever does it, whoever puts your grocery list together to go look for it, if you go out as a family, whatever you might do, you put down, let's get some canned tuna. So what I actually went out and got some canned tuna the other day. I said, hey, I've got to start eating canned tuna. I want more protein. It's a great source of protein. So I'm going to go look, and I wanted to look at what the health measures said. So I went on Health Canada because I live in Canada, and I looked up and I said, what tuna should I get? Is there safe tuna? Is there a safe specific brand? I was looking more based on sort of mercury levels. And when you look based on mercury levels and the health of tuna, they give you a specific type of tuna to get. They say to try and avoid albacore tuna, but anything else that they sell that is sustainable, and they gave you some of the tuna fish. I don't have it in front of me, but they gave me the right species, and I'm like, okay, great. I go out, I buy it. I know I'm getting something sustainable. But then you get this report, and you're looking at some of the grocers, and you're like, what are their sourcing policies? Are they transparent? Do they show on their websites where they get it from? And then you have this is a big pain in the butt. To buy seafood in today's day is really difficult to do. You don't know if it's healthy. You have to go check Health Canada. Then you have to go and you have to check to make sure that they rank well on a specific report from Greenpeace, right? Then you go look at your apps like Seafood Watch. There's other apps out there that show sustainability and what to avoid, what to use, what to support, and you have those apps. Now, all the information needs to be updated, and a lot of work and a lot of money goes into updating those apps, updating the information. And I do respect and love the fact that people are out there trying to make it as easy as possible to get seafood. However, it is still difficult. Even with all that information, there is still a problem with seafood fraud. We have this massive problem with buying seafood, and the fact that it's just fraught with deception, fraught with just fraud, which I guess is deception, but deception in where grocers are sourcing their tuna fish, right? And this is all questioning other sourcing and other labels that we see, right? This puts everything into question for me. But I would love to know what you think. Do you think that it's more difficult now than it ever was, or just the fact that we're aware of more things that add to the difficulty of buying seafood? Is that going to prevent you from buying seafood? Is that going to make you question seafood? If you bought seafood in the past, do you actually want to buy seafood now, knowing that there are so many problems with supply chains, there are so many problems with transparency, and the fact that it could be a fraudulent fish? Are you still interested in buying seafood? I'd love to know your thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer. I really just want to know. I'm super frustrated with buying seafood unless I actually buy it straight from the fisher. I know there are programs. Here in Canada, there's a company called Skipperado. I'm not getting sponsored by them, but I know they have a program where you can actually just buy straight from the fisher. There are a number of community-supported fisheries in North America and probably worldwide. And I think that's the way to go in the future. It's really difficult to buy something from a grocery store or from a seafood store where you don't know exactly where it comes from, and they may not be able to tell you. Even if they do you really trust them? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You can leave a comment on the YouTube channel or on this episode, on this video if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you want to get a hold of me, you can DM me on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean, at How to Protect the Ocean. You can also follow the link in the show notes to contact me on my website. That goes to my personal email. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of How to Protect the Ocean. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.